Singleton design pattern. When should I use a singleton design pattern? Sorry? Sir, whenever I have a class whose only one object should be created. If a class should only be only one object for a particular class has to be created, then I will use a design pattern called as a singleton design pattern. Correct? Right. So tell me, what are the steps that I need to follow in order to create a singleton design pattern? What are the steps I need to follow in order to create a singleton design pattern? First and foremost thing, I should be creating a private constructor. So once I create a private constructor, nobody outside the class can create an object. In such a scenario, within the same class, I will create one object. And in order to access that object, I will create one static method. Object, whatever I would have created, I will make it as a static object. And wherever, in whichever class I want an object of a singleton class, I will call that static method get the object. This is what we have done, yes or no? Correct? Then moving to the next design pattern that we had, which was the factory design pattern. So what did we do in a factory design pattern? Sorry? What is the need for a factory design pattern? In order to hide and keep the name of the classes unexposed, we make use of a factory design pattern. I hope you are able to understand this. We make use of a factory design pattern. I hope it is clear whatever we have discussed there. Hello? Alright. And also I have to start off with a new concept or a new topic called as Hibernate. So before I talk about Hibernate, I just wanted to understand, have you learnt about lambda expressions? Yes? In your core Java it should have been complete. I guess mostly while you are doing the multi-threading, you would have also achieved multi-threading by using lambda expression, right? So what do you mean by lambda expression? Why do you use lambda expressions? For security, reduce the number of lines of code. Yes or no? So tell me, what is the requirement to have or to create a lambda expression? How can I create or when can I create a lambda expression? Sir, whenever I have an interface with one single function, whenever I have an interface with one single function in it, that is when I can create a lambda expression. Sir, will you agree with me? So what is such an interface called as? It is called as functional interface. Will you agree with me? So now assume this is a functional interface called as a demo. If I have to write a lambda expression, this is how I would write it, where I will say new demo and then some body for this function called as the new demo is equals to 0 parameter lambda function. This is how I would write a lambda expression. This is the basic syntax for a lambda expression. Will you agree with me? Yes? So tell me now, I have written a program like this. Somebody doesn't know that demo should only have one method. So I have one programmer who would come to my demo and he is going to make one more method inside it. He's going to write one more method inside it. As soon as I write it like this, what will happen? Will the program execute or will I get an error? I'll get an error. Where will I get an error? At what line will I get an error? So, will I get the error at the interface or will I get the error where I am writing the lambda expression? I'll get an error where I am writing an lambda expression. Why I am trying to tell you this is, in the industry, there will be few programmers who will only have access to interface. He will not have access to this class where the interface's body is being given. So in such a case, tell me, did this programmer get an error here? When he wrote a additional method, will he get any error here? No. But where the error is? In this particular class, which means in some other class the error is. Don't you feel I need to stop this? The place where the programmer is writing this method, here only I should get an error. Who has to tell me? My program only should tell, sir. My program only, the compiler only should tell, hey programmer, you are writing this one additional method inside this demo. You should not be writing this. Why? Because demo should only have one single method, because there is somebody who is writing a lambda expression for it. Are you able to understand this? So how will my program tell me there is an error? How will my program tell me there is an error? See, for example, if I just have to tell you, I don't know if you have been practicing on the Thai platform. We have given subjective questions. If you can see, as soon as you open any program, there is a do's, don'ts. Are you able to observe this? The reason is very simple. Previously, we tried giving you programs. When we were asking you to write programs, most of you were writing it within the same class. In the main method only, everything, whatever you want, you are writing it in one single class. You are trying to execute it. The platform also was able to see whether the output is matching or no. In the background, we would have written some test cases. See, this input, this output should be there. This input, this output. So, output, whatever your program gave, output, whatever we have defined, it used to match and say, yes, output is correct, output is wrong. But that is when we tried understanding, okay, program output students are able to get. But are the program's output according to the standard? Is the user or is the student declaring a variable? Is the student writing one additional method? Is he calling that method and executing the program? I hope you are able to understand this. So then what we did? For the platform, we gave few more points. Tell me, whatever those few more points are there, do's, don'ts. I guess there is nothing in don'ts for now. In do's, whatever you are able to see. Tell me, is anything related to the program? Use a variable, follow camel case convention, follow Pascal convention. That's all is what is there. Write a method accepting parameter. Is it related to the program? No, sir, it is general instruction. Will you agree with me? Yes, it is program specific again, but there is nothing related to the question there. I hope you are able to understand this. But we have given that information. Why? So that the platform will take this also as input and give us the specified result. I hope you are able to understand this. In the same way, when I say here, I have to get one error from my program. It should give me an error. Hey programmer, one more method you don't write. In such a case, I should give some instruction to my program. Additional information I need to give. This additional information only we call it as metadata, and metadata is nothing but annotation. You would have used one annotation here. What was the annotation that you have used here? @functional interface. Why did you write this @functional interface? As soon as you write it as @functional interface, right here at the demo, it will start giving you an error. It will start saying demo is not a functional interface. So you remove @functional interface, or you remove one method. I hope you are able to understand this. You either remove the method or you remove the @functional interface. Now tell me, anybody writing this portion of the code, will he have any problem? Sir, he will not have any problem. Sir, why? Because here at this point only, the programmer is told, somebody has declared it as @functional interface. If you don't remove the method, there will be an error. Make sure you remove it, so that is when he will understand he shouldn't be writing it like this. So, in short, what I am trying to tell you here is, what is an annotation? Annotations are extra bit of information given to the program so that the program can help us in return. What is it doing? It is helping me only in return. I hope you are able to understand this. The reason why I had to tell this is because as I get into the program of Hibernate, 40% of my code will depend on the annotation. 40% is depending on the annotation. So that is the reason I just wanted to help you understand why I am using annotations. I hope it is clear. Right? So, having told this, we have to get into a concept called as the Hibernate framework. So, what do you mean by a framework? You have also learned something called as collection. We term collection also as collection framework. But in reality, collection is not a real framework for that fact. Only thing is, just because it has lot of classes into it, lot of interfaces have been written around the collection classes. That is why we call it as collection framework. So tell me, what did you do in collection framework? Were you writing the code manually there? Sir, their manual writing code was not there, sir. There were internal methods. I was using those internal methods. So what is a framework? There are already inbuilt classes, inbuilt interfaces, methods. All I need to know is which class should I use, when should I use, how should I use. In collections, that is what you have learned. Which collection class to use, which method to use, how to write the program. Correct? So in the same way, when we come to Hibernate, Hibernate is treated as an alternative for your JDBC. Hibernate is treated as alternative for your JDBC. So in Hibernate, what is that I am going to do, or what is that we are going to do? Just to help you understand that, one thing you need to understand is with respect to JDBC. See, tell me, when we were learning about the JDBC, was there any problem associated with JDBC? JDBC code, was it easy or difficult? Easy, sir. That you are telling today. On the first day when I wrote the code, you are like, which class he is calling, why he is calling, I don't understand only. In that we did something called as DAO implementation. Sir, till JDBC credit was okay, sir. DAO when you started, whatever I learnt earlier I forgot, sir. Again, after you started using for 2-3 days or 4-5 days, when you started getting used to the DAO implementation, Then you felt DAO implementation is also easy? Yes or no? See, let me tell you, advanced Java, when you look at it for the first time, you'll get scared about it. But as you start using it, it is simpler to write the code, sir. Compared to core Java, advanced Java is simple, sir. But only thing is, in order to understand advanced Java correctly, core Java you should have good knowledge. Will you agree with me? Hello? Right. So, just recollect, in order to insert data into the table using JDBC, how many lines of code you were writing? To insert the data into the table, how many lines you have written? Some 8 to 10 lines, sir, depending on the table. If the table is big, because I had to take input, pstmt.set set string I had to do. So 8 to 10 on an average. If the table is big, some 15-20 lines. Will you agree with me? Right? But what if I tell you the same thing in Hibernate? You will be doing it in less than 5 lines. To be very specific, 2 lines. It will be easy, sir. But I will tell you one thing, when it comes to the framework. See, framework, once I start writing the code, you will understand, main code is just 2-3 lines. The setup is a headache. When I say setup is a headache, setup is a little tricky. You need to concentrate about it. For example, I showed you the Maven program, if you remember. What did we do in the Maven program? We created a project. We went to the dependency, Maven repository. We bought some dependency. We put it here. We started using it. But in the same way, 1 or 2 additional files we will put here inside Hibernate. So let us try to understand the architecture, how I would be writing for a Hibernate program. I will not directly write the code first. I will show you what are the various files I will get. Right? I will tell you what are the various files I will get. And then I will talk about how to write the program in Eclipse. So for now, let us assume I want to deal with one table. What is the table, sir, if you ask me? In the database, I had already created one table called as the employee table. Will you agree with me? I already had created a table called as the employee table. Right. So in this employee table, I want to deal with the information. Maybe I want to write code to insert data, to read data, update, delete, read a specific. What is all of this? I want to perform CRUD operation, but is it using JDBC that I want to perform CRUD operation? I want to perform CRUD operation by using Hibernate. I want to perform CRUD operation by using Hibernate. I hope you are able to understand this. Sir, how will I write or how will I perform CRUD operation? Using Hibernate now. So to help you understand, what were the various columns that I had here? I guess I had employee ID, employee name, designation, and salary. This was the data which was there in the employee table. Will you agree with me? And now I want to deal with employee table. I want to perform CRUD operations with the help of Hibernate. Sir, how will I perform CRUD operations here on this table called as employee? Tell me, in your JDBC, what were you doing? Assume that I am using JDBC with DAO implementation. Assume I am using JDBC with DAO implementation. Can you help me? What did I have in a DAO implementation? Sir, I had one DAO interface, sir. I have one DAO interface called as DAO.java, which was an interface. Then I had a class implementing this interface called as the DAOIMPL.java, which was implementing the DAO.java. Will you agree with me? What else did I have? I had one class, sir. What class was it? Employee.java. What was this employee.java called as? So when it comes to DAO, I was calling it as Pojo class. When it came to MVC architecture, we started calling it as model class. Will you agree with me? And then there was one main method where you were calling the relevant methods, you were inserting or performing the CRUD operations. This is what I was doing with the DAO implementation. But am I using DAO implementation now? No, sir, DAO implementation I am not using. Then what is that I am using? Hibernate I want to use. So in Hibernate also, I will have a Pojo class or the model class that you call. But this class, whatever I have in my Hibernate, it is not a regular Pojo class nor it is a regular model class. It will have some additional information. What will it have? Additional information. Since additional information is there inside this class called as employee.java, since there is additional information inside this class called as employee.java, I will call this employee.java class as an entity class. Similar code only will be there, but some additional information also will be there. So in your DAO implementation, you are calling it as Pojo class. In MVC architecture, you termed it as model. The same thing with additional lines of code, I will call it as entity class. Sir, I now want to understand what is this entity class, sir? What is this entity class? So if I have to tell you about this entity class, let me call it as employee.java only, the entity class. What will be there in this employee.java class, sir? Employee.java will also have the same details what your Pojo class or model class had. What did your Pojo class or model class have? Sir, whatever details were there in this table, sir, for the same columns, I had created variables here, sir. Yes or no? This is what we did in our Pojo or model classes. So the same thing I will do here. I will create variables. What are the variables, sir? First one, for employee ID, I will say it as EMP ID. In the same way, for employee name, I will write EMP name. In the same way, designation, I will write. In the same way, salary, I will write. Apart from writing all of this, I will also have setters and getters, constructors, toString method. All this I will have. Sir, then how is this different from Pojo class, sir, or how is this different from the model class, sir? How is this entity different from the Pojo class or the model class. See, to help you understand this, you need to understand. Can you tell me why did I write this employee.java? What is this employee.java? Entity is what you are saying. But what is an entity class? Entity class is a class which represents the column in the table. Also, it will be mapped to the table. Entity class will represent the columns in the table. Also, the entity class will be mapped to the table. I hope you are able to understand this. It is mapped to the table. Tell me whether your model classes or Pojo classes, were they mapped to the table? Their mapping was not there, sir. I did not map to the table, but only thing is I told this class, this variable, this column, this variable, this column. In that way I wrote the program, that's all. But I never mapped it to the table. But your entity class is different because your entity class will be mapped to the table. Why does it have to map to the table, sir? The reason it have to be mapped to the table is because I need to make sure whenever I say EMP ID is the data, EMP ID should be mapped to this column called as EMP ID. EMP name variable should be mapped to EMP name. So in this way, one mapping I have to establish. How will I establish this mapping, sir? See, there are two ways in which you can establish a mapping between your class and your table. There are two ways in which you can map your class to the table. So the first way of mapping is by using something called as an Hibernate mapping using XML. Hibernate mapping by using XML, which means we will have a XML file, just like your web.xml or pom.xml. I will create one XML file here, I will map it. And the second way of doing it is by using something called as annotations. The second way of doing it by using something called as annotations. So if you ask me, XML configuration or XML mapping is outdated. Nobody will use XML mapping today. Nobody is using XML mapping today. So what is that we will learn, sir, is we will learn something called as the annotation based mapping. We will learn something called as annotation based mapping. See, just because I have told it is outdated, I just don't want you to ignore it. Once you write this program, I want you to go back home, ask ChatGPT, this is a program that I have written using annotations. Can you give me an equivalent code for XML configuration? Everything will remain the same, one extra file will come, that's all. You will not be writing additional code here. It will be a normal Pojo or a model class. One additional file you will get, which is your XML file, that's all. So we are not using it, doesn't mean that you should not learn. Good to know knowledge, good to have knowledge. So make sure after the session you learn what is XML configuration. The reason why I am saying what we are not learning in the class is because at least some of you will go back home, open your book or open your laptop and learn a little about it, that's all. Right? Okay, sir. Tell me now, what is that we are using? We are using annotations. So what are annotations now? additional information I will give to my program so that my program will help me back. Tell me, what is this class employee.java? It is not Pojo, it is not model. What is this? It is an entity class. If it is an entity class, I should tell my program, hey program, this is only one entity class, you see what all is needed. How will I say it is an entity class, sir? I will write an annotation called as @entity. For this class, see when I say for this class, I will just mention this as employee, which means you are looking at class employee. Above that class employee, I will write @entity. What does it indicate @entity? It is an entity class. What is this entity class going to do, sir? This class should be mapped to some table. Will you agree with me? This class should be mapped to a table. Which table is this mapped to? It is mapped to a table called as employees, sir. That information also I should write in my program. I will say, boss, entity class is mapped to a table. Entity class is mapped to a table. What is the name of the table? The name of the table is employee. I hope you are able to understand this. The name of the table is employee. Sir, I have employee ID in the table, sir. I have employee ID in the table. In the same way, in the class I have employee ID variable, sir. Will you agree with me? I have one employee ID variable. I have one employee ID column. Don't you feel both of them should also be mapped? Hello? Employee ID, where is it mapped to? Is it mapped to the table called as employee? I am not mapping employee ID to table, sir. I am mapping employee ID to what? Column name. Will you agree with me? Which means I will write one annotation here called as @column annotation. For which column is it mapped? Name is equal to EMP ID. I hope you understand this. Same way, employee name, where is it mapped to? Column called as employee name, sir. So here also I will say @column name is equal to EMP name. Similarly, designation, where is it mapped to? Column called as designation, sir. So column name is equal to designation. Similarly, salary mapped to column name is equal to salary. I hope you are able to understand this. So what is this mapping? I hope you are able to understand what is an entity class now. So tell me, what will your entity class have? It will have all the details that a normal Pojo class or a model class will have. Along with this, it will also have some annotations. It will also have some annotations. Will you agree with me? Hello? Okay, sir. Now I have one entity class. I have one table. I have mapped the entity class with the table. Now I want to insert an employee or update existing employee details. For that, I will create one class. Let me call this class here as Hibernate. Maybe I'll call it as main.java. In this main.java, I will have a main method. Main.java, I will have a main method. Pratik, you can copy it later because I'll change this again. Whatever is there, I'll change it. Don't worry. In the end, when you want, I'll tell you when you will have to copy. So I have main.java. Sir, whatever this main.java is there, it is going to create one employee. It wants to insert that employee into the table. So it will create one employee. What is the employee? Maybe it will say new employee with ID called as 6. I don't know what is the ID. I'll see and create a new ID. ID 6. Name I will write it as Virat. And designation I will probably write it as developer, and the salary is 18,000. In this way, one employee I have created. Sir, once you have created this employee, should I keep it with my main method, or what should I do with this employee object? I have to insert it into the table. Will you agree with me? When I say I want to insert it into the table, look at my program. Anywhere, is there a connection established between my Java program and the table? Sir, what is this, sir? This is called as mapping, not connection. This is called as mapping. It is not called as connection. To establish the connection, if you remember, you were writing some lines of code. What were the lines of code? JDBC colon MySQL colon CJ dot com dot hitters. CJ dot JDBC dot driver. This is something that you are using. After this, you are also writing JDBC colon MySQL colon / localhost colon 3306 / DB name, whatever is your database name. Apart from this, you also wanted root and root. What was it? Username and password. All this information you wanted, will you agree with me? In order to establish the connection. So in Hibernate also I will need all of this. But the way in which I would have written this, I will call it as a configuration file. I will call it as configuration file. What do you mean by configuration file, sir? In order to use Hibernate, in order to connect to Hibernate, whatever are the lines of code, all that I would have put here. Not just this, along with this, some more lines will also be there. I'll explain you what are the other lines that I'll have. But the main lines are these. So all this, I will put it into one file. Whatever this file I have now, this only I will call it as hibernate.cfg.xml. Hibernate configuration.xml. That's all it is called as. If you want, sir, I don't want all of this, sir, then you can write config.xml. Or if you want, you can write xyz.xml. Or if you want, you can write it as your own name.xml, your wish. It is just a name of a file, that's all. But whenever you write that configuration file, your Hibernate program will specifically search for one file which is having the name hibernate.cfg.xml. It will search for a file hibernate.cfg.xml. If you have not written it as hibernate.cfg.xml, then you should specify the name. Boss, whatever configuration file you want, it is there in akil.xml file. If you write it as hibernate.cfg.xml, then you need not tell anything. Your Hibernate program will understand, oh, this is only my configuration file. I hope you are able to understand this. Yes or no? So what I am going to do now is I will keep it as Hibernate CFG.xml only. When I write the code, I will show you where you need to change. If you give some other name, I will explain it to you. So now I will tell here I am also having a Hibernate CFG.xml. Why do I need Hibernate CFG.xml? To establish a connection to the database. I hope you are able to understand this. So here after creating an employee object to connect to the database, I would have written some lines of code for connection. Then also to insert the data, I would have written some lines of code to add the data into the table. I hope you are able to understand this. But whatever this main method I have, imagine now I wanted to add elements. Later I will want to fetch. I will write some lines of code here to fetch data. Then I will say I want to fetch a specific. So I will write fetch specific also. I want to update. For update also some lines of code I will write. I want to delete. For delete also some lines of code I will write. Don't you feel my main method will become so much messy now? Yes or no? So to overcome this, whatever the main method I have, I will call this main method as Hibernate Manager. Hibernate Manager is nothing but it is going to manage my data, that's all. If I say manager insert, he will go and insert. Manager fetch, he will go and fetch. Manager update, he will update. Manager delete, he will delete. So when you go to the internet, some of them will call this as Hibernate Manager. Whatever lines of code they have, they will put it directly in the main method. They will call it as a main method only. Or some of them will also write this as Hibernate DAO implementation. Some of them will write it as Hibernate Manager, Hibernate DAO main method also. If I say there is a Hibernate DAO implementation, can you tell me what is missing here? DAO is missing, sir. Implementation, if it is there, there should also be one interface, sir. So if you want, in Hibernate also you can write the DAO architecture by saying here as Hibernate DAO.java. And your Hibernate Manager DAO implementation will implement the Hibernate DAO. I hope you are able to follow this. Hello? So for now, I will tell, in order to execute this, there is one main method. Main method, I have written it in a different class, which I will call it as main.java now. Main.java, what will it do? It will simply invoke a method, the method will execute. It has to connect, then call add. Connect, then call delete. Connect, update. Connect, fetch. Connect, fetch specific. Main method's duty is call the methods inside the Hibernate DAO implementation. That's all. I hope you are able to understand this. Hello? So now tell me, when you look at this in total, only thing is you are able to see, sir, so many files are there, sir. That is what I am trying to tell you. Only the setup environment is tricky. But writing the code is very simple. Your concentration, where should your concentration be? Your concentration should all be on this particular file. Why? Because that is where the actual CRUD operation will take place. In main method, what will you do? Create object of Hibernate manager, call a method. Do you don't know how to do it? We know how to do it, sir. What is there inside this employee now? Pojo class. We know how to write. Annotations, some extra annotations we are writing. That's all. Hibernate configuration.xml. See, 90% of the times, configuration file, nobody will write it. Somebody would have already written, we will copy paste it, that's all. All you have to understand is what is there, why do I need it. Then what else is left out? Interface, will you write anything? 5 methods I want, that's all you will write in interface. Hello? What will I write here, sir? Hibernate DAO implementation. I'll have to write the Hibernate code. Now as soon as I say Hibernate code in DAO implementation, for a minute you will start thinking about your DAO implementation files. Each method 20 lines, sir. 150 lines of code was there in each DAO implementation file, sir. Yes or no? Don't worry, here you will not have so much of lines of code. The reason is very simple. In your regular JDBC DAO, you are using SQL queries. Yes or no? You are using SQL query, you are using a JDBC program. But when it comes to Hibernate, you will not be writing even a single query. See, maybe here and there, one line you may write, which may look like a query for you. But complete query you will never write. If you try writing a query in your Hibernate program, it is not called as, or you will not be using SQL queries. You will write something called as HQL. Hibernate query language it is. You will be writing Hibernate query language. Why do I need it, sir? Because already SQL queries in JDBC has made your life tough. To make it easy, we have HQL queries. I hope you are able to understand this. Hello? Right. So now, if I just have to tell you, whatever these files I have, I will now start writing these files inside different packages. Because I told you, we write code in an organized way in packages. Whatever this employee.java I have, I will call this employee.java inside a package com.tap.entity. If you want DAO and DAO implementation, you can write it inside com.tap.dao files. You can write it inside com.tap.dao files. Main method you can write it as com.tap.main. I hope you are able to understand this. Sir, everything is okay, sir. But some small information is missing, sir. See, look at this here. You are calling com.mysql.cj.driver, cj.jdbc.driver, whichever driver class you are saying. Where is it present? Jar file, sir. Connector I want, sir. But connector I will not use. I will create a Maven project. If I am creating a Maven project, then one more file I will have here. What is it? Sorry? pom.xml. I hope you are able to understand this. Inside this pom.xml, what do I need, sir? So in the pom.xml, I will write the code related to MySQL connector. And also, since I am writing a Hibernate program, I will have to bring some dependency related to Hibernate, which is called as Hibernate core dependency. I will need to bring Hibernate core dependency, MySQL connector jar. I hope you are able to understand this. Now if you look at your program, this is a complete Hibernate architecture. The way in which you will write a complete Hibernate program. So can we try to set this up? Hello? Can I try to set this up? For this, first and the foremost, what will I need? What do I need first and the foremost? I need one table, sir. Do I have a table already? Sir, already table is there. Will you agree with me? Let me go to the workbench now. Root is the password. Cancel. Unknown file encoding. What is this for? Okay. So you can see here what was the table, I guess September JEE. In this September JEE I have a table called as, employee. If you see the table called as employee, this is what I have. Okay, anyways, email and password is also there. I will insert email and password also. So I have employee ID, employee name, designation, salary, email and password. All this information I want to insert into this particular table. Now let me go and create a project and start writing the code. So let me just close all of this. Boot dashboard, why did it open? Okay. Show view package explorer. Okay. So I want to create a project. So what type of project will I create? Will I create a regular Java project or will I create a Maven project? Since I am talking about pom.xml, I want a Maven project. Will you agree with me? I will right click, I will tell it as new. I have a Maven project, I will select it. I will say, boss, I want to create a simple project. Don't give me any architecture, give me a simple Maven project. Then I will click on next. It will ask me group ID, com.tap, and artifact ID I will say Hibernate 1. In other words, it is a first Hibernate program. Okay. Then packaging. Is it a jar packaging or a var packaging? Var packaging. Is Hibernate an alternative for JEE or is it an alternative for JDBC? What is JDBC? Core Java program. Sir, it is not a web application. If it is web application, it is var packaging. Since it is a normal Java application, it is a jar packaging. I hope you understand this. Right. Okay, sir. Now let me create this. So you can see Hibernate 1 project I have. First thing, I will start off with this pom.xml. Tell me in the pom.xml what do I want? I want a MySQL connector, Hibernate core. So MySQL connector and Hibernate core, I want to bring and put it into this pom.xml. Here I want to add dependencies. So I'll write a dependencies tag. Inside this dependencies tag, I want to insert the dependency. I will go to the internet. I will search for what is it? A Maven repository. From the Maven repository, I will now search for MySQL connector. You can see MySQL connector /j. 8.0.33 has more number of usages. Okay. I will copy this. I will come back here. I will paste the MySQL dependency. So after pasting the MySQL dependency, what is the other dependency that I need? Hibernate core dependency. So you can see Hibernate ORM. See, ORM is nothing but object relational mapping, where one class in a program or one object in your program, you are relatively mapping it to a database table. So Hibernate ORM or Hibernate core, this is what I want. And whenever you are using any dependency, don't use the very latest one, because when you see these alpha stages, all of this, these are all still at a developing stage, or they will still have lot of bugs. Maybe you can use a little older one. Maybe I will use 6.6.1 final. I'll use 6.6.1 final. So I'll just copy this. I'll come back. I will paste it here. See, as we start writing the programs, I just want you to understand and realize the actual problem is in the setup. You will see so many programs when I start writing. Some programs, code everything will be right, you will not get output. You remove one dependency, put another dependency, another version, you will get the output. So why I am trying to tell you this is, setting up the project is a headache here. If you set up the project correctly, writing the code, I will show you. 1 line, 2 line, that's all. I hope you understand this. You will be like, sir, to write these 2 lines, this much setup I have to do, sir. You have to do it. But one more thing is, in the industry, most of the times, you will not be doing your own setup. You will be told, these are the dependencies, along with the version names they will tell you. You use this version only, this dependency only. At least when they say that, you should be in a position to copy paste it here. That is the whole reason why I am setting up this environment so much. How much? Almost close to 1 hour we have only spent on setting up the environment, in understanding the environment. The reason is very simple. Writing the code is simpler. In case if your manager or your senior says that, see, this is the setup, this is the environment, set it up and come. He will give you one configuration. These are the dependencies. This is the version. At least you should know where you should copy paste it. I hope you are able to understand this. That is the reason why I am spending a lot at the initial stage to set it up. So that once I start writing the code, you will feel very simple, sir, code. I am saying it multiple times, very simple, because I know it is very simple. Right? Anyways, okay, setup is over. Pom.xml is over. Hello? Pom.xml over. What is the next thing? I will create employee.java. Right? Employee.java. What is my employee.java? Entity class. See, anyways, I have added the dependencies. I will update the Maven project. So I will go to Maven, update project, so that if any dependencies need to be downloaded, they would be downloaded. Okay, sir. Now I need an entity class. So I will right click. I will say I need a new class. What is the name of the class? I will call it as employee. Package, I will write it as com.tab.entity. I will finish it. So I have a class here which is called as an entity class. I have a class called as the entity class. So how will I say this employees entity? All the annotations we will add it later. But for now, what should your employee have? Sir, all private members it should have, sir. Private int ID. Maybe I guess it is written as EMP ID. Okay. See, again, whatever variable name you want, you can use. In JDBC, J2W also I told the same thing. Whichever variable names you want, you can use. But if I use anything apart from what is there in the table, I will get confused. So that is the reason I will use the same variable names, EMP ID, then private string emp name, designation I need, copy, designation and salary also, no? So see here, emp name, designation, salary, email, password. This is what I need. All private members. Once I have all private members, then what I will do? Go to source, generate getters and setters, select all is what I will do. I will generate getters and setters. Then what I need? Constructor source, generate constructor using the fields. I will select all. I will generate a constructor. See, one thing I want you to understand, in employee, I am not making a employee as auto-generated. I will remove the ID as auto-generated. I will also show you, if you have auto-generated, what you need to do. Right? For now, ID is not auto-generated. You have to enter the ID. Okay, sir. One constructor I have written. Another zero parameter constructor I need to write. So right click, source, generate constructors using the fields, deselect all, generate. Then there is a toString method I want to generate, source, toString method, select all, generate a toString method. So now this class is a POJO class or a model class. Why? Because entity, it needs some additional information. Now I want to make this as an entity class. So I will go to the program on the top. Employee class, what is it? It is an entity. So I will say entity. And employee class is mapped to a table called as employee. Will you agree with me? Hello? Sir, there is an error for entity, there is an error for table, sir. These are annotations present in different package. Which package? They are from Hibernate. You need to bring it from there. So you can say, I'll just hover, import entity from Jakarta.persistence. I'll say yes, import. Table, import it from Jakarta.persistence or org Hibernate annotations. I also want this from Jakarta persistence only. So all your imports are from Jakarta persistence. So now this class is mapped to one table called as employee. Tell me, just by mapping this class to the table, is it sufficient? What should you do? Sir, ID, employee name, designation, salary, email, password. This also should be mapped, sir. In order to map it, I will say, boss, EMPID is mapped to a column. What is the name of that column? I will say the name of the column is EMPID. Will you agree with me? So column also I will have to import from Jakarta.persistence. In the same way, I will say every variable is mapped to one column. Every variable is mapped to one column. Tell me EMP name, where is it mapped to? It is mapped to EMP name. Designation, where is it mapped to? Designation. Salary, salary. Email, email. Password, password. This is how it is mapped to. Will you agree with me? Now once you write this, your class is called as a entity class. Now it is called as an entity class. I hope you understand this. Hello? Sir, now what I want, sir? Now I want to create the Hibernate manager. See, first I will create Hibernate manager, then I will rename it to Hibernate DAO implementation, then I will create a Hibernate DAO. But for now, let me write it as Hibernate manager. Okay. So I will right click, I will say I need a new class The name of the class is Hibernate Manager. Where is it present, sir? com.tab.manager, I will say. So in the com.tab.manager, I have a Hibernate Manager. Okay, I will rename file to Hibernate Manager. Okay. Sir, in the Hibernate Manager, what do I need, sir? I want my Hibernate Manager to go insert some data. Yes or no? But if it has to insert some data, will you agree with me? First and the foremost thing, it needs to connect. My Hibernate Manager should need to connect to the database first. Will you agree with me? In order to connect this Hibernate Manager to the database, what do I need? I need some information, sir. I need the driver name, the database name, username, password for the database. All this information I need. Where is all this information present? It should be present inside one Hibernate configuration.xml. So where should this Hibernate configuration.xml be created? Look at your project architecture. There are so many folders and subfolders. Where will you create this hibernate.cfg.xml? Where will you create hibernate.cfg.xml? See, whatever these XML file that I have, the hibernate cfg.xml, it is a helper file. Will you agree with me? It is a file using which there is some information. I will take that information, connect it to the database. I will say, I want you to write or do a small research on annotations today. You will go to the internet, you will do the entire research, you will create one PPT and come. In the end, you will put one slide. References, resources from where I have learnt. Yes or no? Links you will put. Why did you put that? Sir, whatever data I have, if I had to create this data, from here I have taken information. Yes or no? In the same way, in order to connect it to the table, from this file I am taking the information. It is called as a resource file now. In your project, you will have one subfolder called as SRC test resource or SRC main resources. You will have SRC main Java, SRC main resources, SRC test Java. Any test script if you want to write, you will write here. Selenium is a testing tool where you will write some scripts. All that scripts you will put it here. SRC test Java. Or in the same way, SRC test resources, any resources that you need for the test cases, you will put it there. So in the same way, where will I put my resources now? In SRC main resources. I hope you are able to understand this. Inside this SRC main resources, I will now create a file. What file do you want? Hibernate configuration.xml. When I say .xml, what type of file is it? It is an XML file. So I will write here as XML. Search for a XML name. Okay. Oh, directly I can write the file name here. I will say hibernate.cfg.xml. I will say it as a finish. So you can see I have a hibernate cfg.xml file here. Sir, what information I need? Sir, what information I need? I will simply go to Google. I will say hibernate.cfg.xml. For MySQL, I will say, because I am using MySQL. So hibernate.cfg.xml, there is some GitHub link. I'll just open this. Okay, it needs login. Okay, so this entire document. I will just copy, I will come back, I will paste it here. So, sir, you have copied and pasted some code. What is there in this code? Let us try to understand this. See, whatever some lines I have, I will just cut this. I will put it in the end. Right? So, look at this. What is it? Connection URL. What is connection URL? The URL whatever we were writing only, sir. JDBC colon MySQL colon localhost colon 3306. What is our database name? September SEPTJE, correct? September J. Now I will say the username is root, password is root, com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. These were the 4 lines of code that I told you only. Yes. Apart from this, let me remove this for now. In future I will add it and I will show you what is it. But for now let us remove it. What is the next thing that I have? Dialect. Dialect is nothing but, see boss, you are asking me to connect to the database, write a query. Query in which version of MySQL I need to write? Is it MySQL that you are using? Is it Oracle that you are using? Is it any other database that you are using? I am using MySQL 8, will you agree with me? So you can see the dialect. What is the dialect? I am saying boss, the dialect is MySQL 8. Any code that I am asking you to write, you need to convert it into a MySQL 8 query and execute. See, I told you Hibernate. Whatever Hibernate I am talking about, here you need not write code similar to JDBC is what I told. In other words, you need not create SQL queries, etc., etc. Hibernate will create it for you. Whenever you try to insert the data, Hibernate will create it for you. I will show that also, how Hibernate will create a query and insert the data. You will look at it as well. But for now, I hope you are able to understand this. Any confusion here? So, can you see there are some errors? The errors are nothing but you are using some external file or external links. I am not able to download it. For this, you can go to Windows, Preferences. Here you will have a Maven. In Maven, if you see, some downloads are not permitted. Download artifact Java document, download repository index. So I will select all of these. Update Maven projects on startup, download repository index, download artifact document. I will apply this and I will close it. As soon as I apply, it has all the errors have gone because now it is able to download it. I hope you are able to understand this. Right? Sir, I have written this, but there is one line additional, sir, here. What is this line? See? Mapping resource employee hbm.xml. I told you we will perform mapping using 2 ways. First one was using XML, Hibernate configuration. That is employee hibernate mapping.xml. I am not using hibernate mapping.xml. Rather, I am performing mapping using annotations. Annotations, where did I do? In entity class, sir. So that I will tell here, boss, mapping is not by using an XML file. Mapping is by using a class. Which class I need to say? I will say mapping is by using com.tab.entity.employee. Entity, okay, spelling. com.tab.entity.employee. Is that clear? Hello? Okay, sir. After this, sir. Now I can go connect to the database and start writing the code to insert the data. Let me go to my Hibernate manager. In my Hibernate manager, in the connect method, I should connect to the database. In the connect method, I should connect to the database. In order to connect, I need an object by saying new configuration. So there is a class called as the configuration class. I need to import this configuration class. So you can see import it from java.lang.module, javax security authentication.login, org hibernate.cfg. I have to import it from org hibernate.cfg. So connect configuration I have collected. So configuration will give me an object of config. So I will say config is a field that I would have created here as configuration. Is that clear? So configuration type, new configuration object I have created. So once I create this configuration object, why is that I am writing this code? To connect to the database, will you agree with me? Where is the lines of code related to the connection established? So it is present in hibernate.cfg.xml. Will you agree with me? So that I need to say. So I will say here as configure I will say. There is a method called as configure where I need to tell the file name. So configure method accepting a file configuration file name. What is it returning to me? It is returning to me a configuration object. So what I will do is I will say config.configure. I will say, boss, the file for configuration is hibernate.cfg.xml. Is that clear? So I will collect it inside one variable config2 I will say. Config I have already created, config2 I will create. I will say create a field config2. Any confusion here? Hello? So configuration, sir, configuration is now ready. Configure2 is ready. Now if you remember I told you, if you want hibernate.cfg.xml, you can write any name you want. If I would have written here as akhil.cfg.xml, I can write akhil.cfg.xml, or if you want, you can write simply as akhil.xml also. You need to specify the name. But tell me, what is the name that I have written now? Hibernate.cfg.xml. When I write it with this name, one thing I want you to understand, you need not write the file name here. When you follow hibernate.cfg.xml, only then you need not write the file name here. Why, sir? Very simple. Because by default, your Hibernate program will search for a file called as hibernate.cfg.xml. If you have given any other name, you need to mention here. If it is the same name, you mention it or don't mention it, it will be able to get it. So for example, let me show it to you here. I will write the file name first, then I will say system.out.println config2 I will try to print. If connection is correctly present, if the configuration is correctly considered, the object config2 should have a configuration object. Will you agree with me? So let me run my code now. Sorry, this is some core Java code. Okay, I'll have to run the main method. So I'll do one thing. This only I will make it as public static void main. Because later I will add one more class where there will be a main method, but for now I need to see if the program executes. So I need to make these as static. Why? Because I am trying to access it within a static context. It will give me an error. Now, if I run my code, you can see configuration object is created. I will remove this hibernate.cfg.xml. I will again now save this. I will again try to run my code. This time also configuration object is established, which means you are able to get the configuration object whether you mention hibernate.cfg.xml or you don't mention hibernate.cfg.xml. You change the name, you need to mention. Without mentioning, you will not get it. I hope you understand this. Sir, configuration is over, sir. Once the configuration is over, what is the next thing, sir? So, in the config, once I have config2, I just want you to understand here, using config2, I need to call one method now, which is called as build session factory. There is something called as build session factory. Sir, what is this build session factory going to give me, sir? It will give you a session factory which I will collect it in SF. What is SF? I will say create a field, session factory type SF. Is it clear? Hello? Once you have this SF session factory, I need to ask for one session. You remember in your Hibernate, you are asking for a session. No, not in Hibernate. In your JDBC, J2WE, you are asking for a session. In the same way, here also you will ask for one session, but this session is used to interact with the database. So how will I get the session, sir? I will say SF dot open session. Open session will open a session which I will store it inside a session. What is session? Create a field, session type, session. Is it clear? Now, all this you have. Correct. I am very much interested to see what is this config and config2. I want to see what is config, config2. So I will say system.out.println config. In the same way, I will just copy, paste and say config2. When I try to run my code, so some problem is there, I will try to rectify that problem. entity.employee, what is the problem I will tell you, but let me just comment these two lines. Config and config2 I want to print and see. If I run my code, what is there in config and config2? Same object. What does it mean? Configuration, once you create an object, throughout the code it is a single object as long as you don't create a next object. As long as you don't create a next object, it is a single object. So in that case, tell me, why should I simply waste my memory saying it as config2 for a new variable? Can I simply say config is equal to config dot configure? I can say it, sir. In that case, one variable memory I will save. Right? But again, to optimize my code, what is this? Config is equal to config dot configure. Can you tell me what is this config dot configure? What is config? Config is a new configuration object, sir. Will you agree with me? I will simply cut this, put it here. Can I do it like this? Config is equal to new configuration dot configure. Using this, what I got? I got config. Will you agree with me? Once I have config, I am saying config dot build session factory. What is the config dot build session factory giving me? It is giving me session factory. Will you agree? But what is config? Sir, whatever config you have, now you can substitute it with this, sir. Hello? Which means I will just cut, I will replace, remove this. Session factory is equal to new configuration dot configure dot build session factory. Where is that I am using session factory again? Here, sir, sf dot open session. SF, can I substitute it with the above line? So I will say cut all of this, substitute it here, paste it. Session is equals to new configuration dot configure dot build session factory dot open session. So to make it a little readable, I will mention it like this. Is it clear? Okay, sir. I am now able to get a session. Once I have a session, I can start writing the code. So let me see if I will get the session or no. So I will run my code. Once I run my code, I will have an error. So it's not an error, it's an exception. What is the exception saying? Hibernate annotation exception. Why, sir? Entity com dot tab dot entity dot employee has no identifier. It is not having any identifier. Every entity class must declare or inherit at least one ID. What is this, sir? See, when you create a table in your MySQL, will you agree with me that every table should have a primary key? It is compulsory that every table should have a primary key. In this table, which is my primary key? Employee ID is a primary key. Look at this table, look at this entity class. In the entity class, anywhere did I say employee ID is a primary key? That only is the error. Boss, first of all, your employee is representing one table which is not having any primary key. Can you please mention who is the primary key? Can you tell me who is our primary key? Employee ID. For mentioning a primary key, I need to write an annotation @ID. Employee ID is a primary key, so I have written it as @ID. I now need to import it. So Control Shift O, I have imported it from Jakarta persistence.id. Is this clear? Now if I save this, if I go to my Hibernate manager.java, run my code, you can see now session is open. I have a session. I have a session. So once I have a session, all I need to do is write a code to insert the employee into the table. So what I will do is, since it is a Hibernate manager, I will remove the main method. I will say it as connect class. So I will write it as void connect method is what I will write it as. So once I write the connect method, who has to call the connect method now? Main method should call it, sir. So let me see if there is a main method present. You did not give me any main method. Okay. So let me right click. I will say a new class. The name of the class is in a package called as com.tab.main, and the name of the class I will call it as employee main. Since it is for an employee table, employee main I will say. Okay, sir, employee main. What does it have? It has a main method. Once I have a main method, what will I do? I will create an object of Hibernate manager. So I will say here as Hibernate manager type HM is equals to new Hibernate manager. So I have created an object of Hibernate manager Now I will say hm dot connect. So I will not be able to see the connect method because connect method I did not write it as a public method. I will go to the Hibernate manager, I will make it as public so it is visible to everybody. Now I am calling the connect method. I will run the query, I'll run the code. You can see connection is established, the session is ready. Right? Now what I want to do, sir, I now want to create an employee object. I now want to insert the employee into the table. I want to create an employee object, insert the employee into the table. For this, I will create by saying employee type E is equals to new employee. While I am creating the employee, I will pass the details also. If you see the table, I guess 1 and 2 are the IDs. So I will now create employee E is equal to new employee with ID number 3. Name is Dravid with designation as tester and salary as 45,000. Then email dravid at gmail.com, and then what I have, password is also a string, I will make it as a string. Is it clear? Hello? Sir, you have created this employee. What do you want to do, sir? In the Hibernate manager, I will say Hibernate manager dot add employee. Tell me, do I have a add method in Hibernate manager? Did I write a add method? I did not write, sir, so only it is an error. I will hover, I will say create a method called as add employee. Add employee I have created. Sir, what is that I will do inside the add method now, sir? What is that I will do in the add method now? I have one session. Where is the session? I have collected it here. Will you agree with me? I have collected it in one variable called as the session variable. So this session variable I will use and I will say session. What do I want? What do I want to do? Insert data into the table. Which data? Employee, sir. This employee I want to insert into the table. Will you agree with me? So I will say there are two methods which I can call. First method is called as a save method. First method is called as a save method. Another method is persist method. There is a save method, persist method. See, save method is a deprecated method. When I say deprecated, it means that people are not using this. There is an alternative for this. If I just hover, you can see the method save from type session is deprecated. So it will also say, if you want, you can add suppress warnings for deprecation and all. But I will say, okay boss, I don't want to use a deprecated method. I am updated. I will use persist. Session dot persist. Right? Okay. What next, sir? Over. To insert the data, that's all I need to tell. Over. Sir, write one message, sir. System.out.println data added. At least for our happiness, make it 2 lines, sir. JDBC, this much big I wrote, sir. Let me try to execute it. I will go to employee main. I have the object. I am calling the add method. I will now run the code. Data added. Sir, can we see in the database, sir, if really data is added? Ah. Let me go to the database. Not added, sir. Can you see it is not added? Why, sir? See, actual code this much only. But if you remember, when we were learning something called as the acid properties, we understood about something called as atomicity. While we were learning about atomicity, we learnt about one method, set auto commit. I told you in your JDBC, while you are running the code, set auto commit, by default it is a true. To make sure we have a transaction as either 100% complete or 100% incomplete, what were we doing? Sorry? We were making set auto commit as false and writing the code. Later we were committing it. But here in Hibernate, set auto commit, by default it is false. Set auto commit, by default it is false. Which means now I need to find that transaction and commit that transaction. I hope you understand this. I need to find the transaction and commit the transaction. So for that, what I will do is as soon as I write the add method, I will say, boss, I am going to create one transaction. I will collect one transaction, later commit it. So for that I will say session dot current transaction, session dot begin transaction. Session dot begin transaction. It will give me a transaction. T I will say. T is equals to. What is a T? T is nothing but I would have created a field here called as transaction T. Whatever this transaction is there, tell me after I say persist, is it committed? It is not committed, sir. Now I need to commit. So I will say T dot commit. 3 lines, happy, sir. I hope you are able to understand this. Now I will just save it. I will go to employee.main.java. I will run my code. I did not write added, is it? Oh, that line I removed. You can see here that system.out.println I removed. So it is not saying data added. But if I go to the database now, if I refresh the data, you can see a new data is added. Insert with respect to JDBC, insert with respect to Hibernate. How much difference? Sir, so much difference, sir, but here setup is more, sir. If someone will set up and give me, I will write the code easily, sir. See, what I want you to do is I want you to try this setup once or twice. So, before I end this, one thing I will do is, I want to show you, here I told, Hibernate, SQL query I am not creating, but Hibernate will internally use some SQL query. Hibernate will internally use some SQL query. If you want to see that SQL query, in your Hibernate cfg.xml, one property you will need to add like this, where you will ask Hibernate, please show the SQL query that you have written. So for that I will bring that tag, maybe Hibernate configuration.xml show SQL. So only that small tag is something that I want to bring. So you can see here property name is Hibernate show SQL value true, and I will also format the SQL, which means I will put those 2 tags here. So So you can see here, what is that I am writing is, okay, true also I should not write it inside double quotes. So there are two tags which I have brought now. Can you see the two tags? The first one is hibernate.showSQL, hibernate.formatSQL, which means showSQL, it will give you the SQL query in one single line. No, I want it to be formatted properly, sir. Then you can add both of this. Now let me go to the main method. Let me try to execute this. I will make it as a 4 Dhoni and maybe salary 7777 dhoni@gmail.com 7777 password also. Now I will try to insert this data. I will run my code. See here what your Hibernate says. I don't know if I am able to show it to you. 1 second. See it. What does it say? Insert into employee. Designation, email, employee name, password, salary, employee ID, values, question mark, question. It is a similar code that we were writing in JDBC, but here only thing is columns it has written it in its own approach. That's all. I hope you understand this. So tell me, Hibernate code to insert the data, is it easy or difficult? Code is easy, sir. Setup. So what I want you to do today is, after you go back, I want you to create multiple tables. 1 table, 2 table, 3 tables. Write the entire setup. 3 different projects, set it up. Because today freshly you have listened to it. You will be in a very good position to vomit it. So while you are vomiting it, also practice. Right? So make sure you try to go back and execute it. So tomorrow the rest of the CRUD operations we will finish. Right? Alright. So I'll halt my session here. Project... you will not come up. What is the status of the project? What about others? Some of you are like, sir, project, never I came to class, sir. See, make sure all those who are not attending the project classes, make sure you try to attend it, or at least go back, watch videos. See, anybody who has doubts or anything, you can stay back. Others, you can leave. All right. Thank you so much.